we're here this week. Shh, shh, I told you you need to stop talking in the background. We're here this week. Now they're laughing at me. I don't know. I know. I told see, and none of the people listening can hear us. This is what we feel like all the time, right? That there's all these conversations that are going on out there on the internet, and we want to bring you in and share some with you. And of course, this week, we have the great honor and great privilege of having returning guest Rob Kroese on to tell us how to make a lot of money on our Kickstarter, because we still haven't figured it out. So since he's here to tell us where the fine print is. Welcome to the Mosaic Arc. One. See, this is how we do it behind the scenes. We just keep chattering in the background and then we're live. Welcome, Rob. Thanks for coming back. Well, actually, no, you invited yourself on. You sort of you threw up, you sent up a flare and said, "You guys, what's your schedule?" You innocently, "What's your schedule like for the summer?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, we'll be here in July." But apparently that wasn't soon enough. So here, Rob jumped off of his own raft and started swimming, and we had to drag him on. You're here now.
Yeah, basically. Well, we were just talking about you get so involved in these projects, and then it's like you're working all day on these things, and then you're like, oh, holy crap, I gotta let people know about this thing. and that's what I suddenly realized. I was like, wait a minute, how am I promoting this Kickstarter? I need to talk to some of the people that podcast people. So I'm just terrible.
We're not your only date.
Like 2 weeks. It was 10 days ago. Well, you're my priority.
Okay, so this seems to be for the one. It's like we are internally obliged to Rob for making BaseCon a place where I get to give lectures. So that's just like this is a fair exchange, I think. Because Rob, whenever I show up at BaseCon, I can talk about whatever I like. So Rob, talk about whatever you like. How it seems to be the first rule of starting your Kickstarter is invite yourself on your friend's podcast. So we'll be back. Well, actually, at BaseCon, we can talk about our stuff again. That'll work.
Yeah. So, was that a question?
Not really.
No.
Okay.
What? Okay, so Rob, maybe if we have new people, because I am engaged as of last week when I finished writing this lecture that I'm giving next week, which is why we don't have a stream next week, guys. And I'm also informed that one of the things that we need to do to build our audience, since this stream tonight is about building our audience, is to say over and over and over, give people action items. Okay, the biggest action item on tonight is help Rob. Okay, so we did that. All right.
Wait, you helped me and I missed it?
Hey,
good night. No.
Guys, we're going to be spending the whole night. This is like a telethon for Rob's Kickstarter. By the end of the night, How much money do you want to have? We have 2 hours, and what's your goal?
I want to. Well, the Kickstarter is currently right under 18,000. So let's get it over 20,000.
Over 20,000 in the next 2 hours. Okay, so
Yeah,
this is
why
this is
not?
my
That's
dream.
$1,000 an hour.
$1,000 an hour. If we can pull that
Yeah.
off, that would be something. That would definitely be something. So I understand that one of the things you need to do in this marketing gig, right, which is, you convince people that the thing you have is a thing they already want, and they didn't even know that they wanted it because it's already like these things that they already had, but is new and different, and so it's fresh, and they're not going to want to miss it. Is you have to give them action items, which is saying, guys, we give you all sorts of information on the Dragon Common Room website at dragoncommonroom.com. Please go visit it and do your homework. Okay, there. It works in class. And I hand out the syllabus.
It does, really? Like your students
homework.
actually do what you tell them to do?
To the degree that they've managed to fool me now for decades. So yeah. And it has nothing to do with whether or not it's AI or ChatGPT, right? They've only had that recently.
Yeah. I never did anything. My teachers told me to. So
we know.
That's a new thing for me.
We've been reading your Substack.
Yeah, I was one of those kids.
However, I do know, guys. Okay, so Rob, sober introduction, which I'm incapable of because I've been working all week on a talk. Rob is founder of BaseCon, and tickets are up for that, or you've sold out, or?
Yeah, no, we still have registrations available. It's basecon.com, and you can register right there.
And first week in September.
September 5 through 7 this year, yeah, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We don't reveal the exact location. It's near the airport. Actually, same place as last year, but we don't reveal it normally publicly because we've had some problems in the past with psychopaths trying to shut us down and stuff. So it's there's less of that now because
controversy.
Because
you court controversy, don't you?
I don't really, only to the extent that I say things that are just, to me, like obviously true, like, men can't be women and stuff. So
you've just gotten a shutdown.
Right.
Speaking the truth is deadly.
That was in quotes. Like that was just I say that.
You say that. You don't.
I say that.
I've
said that.
I'm
not saying that.
Hold
now.
your fingers crossed as you're doing it.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't really go out of the way to be controversial. It was BaseCon. The idea of BaseCon was just a place where people could speak freely and be themselves and really just have fun. To not be beholden to some kind of ideology or anything. So
you have this weird ideology thing called truth.
Yeah, the idea is, and I don't. Obviously, I think I'm always right? Because everybody does, right? Because otherwise, you don't think you're always right, but you always think you're right.
Yes,
right?
Although I know, and the thing is, to be fair, we do believe in testing it to see whether or not it holds up. This truth stuff that we think we're right about. Yeah,
there is such a thing as truth. That's an important thing to establish. I don't think that's. I think that there are a lot of people out there who will simultaneously tell you that there's no such thing as truth, and they will shut you down for saying that anything that is wrong at the same time, which seems contradictory. But
is contradictory. Is in fact contradictory.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that are of this sort of mindset that are contradictory, and for that reason are kind of stifling this sort of left-wing progressive ideology that's taken over a lot of things, and of course is somewhat in retreat now, thankfully. So it's the atmosphere is a little friendlier to people who are just normal and speaking the truth, or trying, not even speaking the truth, but recognizing that there is a truth and trying to let the truth have a chance at coming out.
We do have, so just guys, we don't know why Rob has robot voice, but it's appropriate to the problem.
How bad is my robot voice?
It's not that bad.
Okay.
No. It sounds like you're speaking into a fan a little bit.
Okay, so it's our summer stream. Our summer stream keeps getting. It's heat.
There is a fan.
It's the heat.
Yeah.
I'm in my sunroom, so it's like whatever temperature it is outside is the temperature that is inside. So it gets a little warm in here. It's a very pleasant room to be in, except for when it's 95 degrees outside.
Well, but you've been spending a fair amount of time of your time recently down south. You should be used to this by now, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because because in Ecuador, the temperature varies so little in Ecuador. I mean, it can be fairly warm, but it's like in Salinas where I stay, the temperature varies by maybe like 5 degrees throughout the year.
Wow. I
Um,
wouldn't.
San
I would
Diego.
not like that. I like I mean, it can vary more
and
like 30 degrees in one day here.
yeah, right. Yeah, a few weeks ago, it went. We had like a 40-50 degree swing in a day.
Oh,
And down there, it's like, and
crazy.
it's my girlfriend down there is, she will, if the temperature gets below about 72, she starts talking about how cold she is.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if it
yeah.
gets above 76, then she's just unbearably hot. So there's about a 4 degree range where she's maybe comfortable. It's, I think 72 to 73 degrees is she's okay with. And anything outside of that is just like it's unbearable for her because she's just not used to the change. It's just, and I'm just like, oh, and she talks about how she wants to come. I sent her pictures of Michigan in the winter, and she's like, "Oh, it's so beautiful. I want to go there." And I'm like, "No, you do not."
Freeze.
No, you wouldn't.
She would freeze.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
get her to come in, October or something when it's
right. Even October would be like, it'd be either too
crisp.
hot or too cold for her,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, you have no idea. So
Well, I
she's
did
been
when
fun.
I was down in Australia in August some years ago, and therefore it was winter for them, and it was like 50 or maybe 60, low 60. I don't know. It was not cold to me, and they had all the doors and windows open, and they kept talking about how cold it was. And I'm like,
Hmm.
but 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 it's sunny. there's there's nothing here.
Yeah,
Okay, so we've
it's
established, Rob,
okay.
BaseCon is in Michigan, but Rob's not always there. But you guys
Yeah,
should be at BaseCon in September because then you can carry on this kind of conversation about craftsmanship and storytelling and industry and writing and indie stuff in person, which is way better than just doing it online, although online is fun too.
it's a lot of fun. We have
Yeah.
a lot of panels and presentations, and there's games, and mostly it's just hanging out with people and talking and yeah, just have fun. That's, I mean,
Yeah,
I
there was
people,
there was
but
a
I'm
lot of really fun side conversations there too.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's great. It's just a lot of really great people, and everybody's really cool. And it's like I always tell people that even though I'm running around like a crazy person most of the time because I'm trying to keep everything running and on schedule and stuff, keep people from dying from food allergies and stuff, but but we had a little issue
The hotel
last
did the
year.
food pretty well
A lot of
this past
pressure.
couple of times. Yeah.
There were some issues with breakfast, and anyway, uh, yeah. But I still have fun, even though I'm like trying to keep things on track. I still have a blast every year. And the first year, it almost killed me, but every year since then, it's been, I have a lot of fun. It's just a blast. So
Well, yes, last year we actually had you on panels.
yeah, I was on
Which
panels.
you hadn't. I don't remember you on panels the previous years. I
I
barely met you the first year. Somehow our
yeah,
mutual friend
uh,
Hans Ethersar invited me to come,
yeah.
and I gave a talk. And here's Rob, and he's the organizer, and everybody loved you. And and they clearly, Rob had written books which were on the book table, and I'm like, and I don't read new books. Come on, are you kidding me?
That's yeah. That's not generally not a bad rule of
I
thumb.
confess I
So
did not I did not buy one of your books the first year because I'm like, I'm suspicious. But then the second year I came and Rob wanted me back, which was very nice, and we got to pitch our story that second year, and so I'm like, I think maybe, well, just to be polite, which you all know I am. I picked up one of your very first books. I think, in fact, your first book, The Mercury Falls. Is that your
hmm
actual first?
that's the first one.
And then
Yeah.
I bought all the rest. So,
Yeah.
well, actually, all the Mercuries anyway. It's like Rob. We've established you write in sets, which is very satisfying to the binge reader because they galump along. We can promise you guys, and yet you have created for yourself a particular kind of problem in your series.
Which is what?
They change.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I also, the next year, I'm like, well, I really, really, really like the Mercury Falls because we've got this angel and he's going through portals and he's going through, doing all this history stuff that I really liked. And that was kind
Yeah.
of cool. And I'm like, well, okay. So the next one I tried was Iron Dragon. Yes. That's a
Yes.
true title, right? Which I will say has one of the most extraordinary space chase scenes I'd ever read. It
Okay.
was quite gripping. But then it turned out that this one was not going to be that funny ever.
No.
It was. I mean, it was.
No.
It was.
And it's
It was a bit of a downer when characters started dying off way too early in the series, and it wasn't
Yeah.
funny at all, right? So I'm
No.
like, wait a minute, I've been had. Here I
Yeah.
thought I was getting a rollicking frolic about Vikings and in
Right.
space, and
And
what
it's
I got
it's
was like
Vikings.
serious stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
It's Vikings building a spaceship, and so you would think that would be hilarious, and it could be funny,
it's
but
not.
it's totally it's not. It's not
Right.
intended to be. And so yeah, that's my problem which is why my website is Bad Novelist, because I keep switching from one thing to another, and I have this core group of people who are like, this is amazing. I wonder what Rob's going to come up with next, but I need that core group to be about twice the size that it is right now,
Yeah.
and then I could live comfortably. So I'm kind of always sort of scrambling, because it's like, well, we'll see who goes for this one.
Okay, so we've established one. He pulls it off on a regular basis. We've had the Mercury series, the Iron Dragon series, and then I think somehow, I'm not quite sure how you did it, how it came across my path, that there was this chapter. There was a teaser chapter for a new Rex story, right? And having been burned by the dragon, I'm like, okay, I'll read it. And then, oh my gosh, it was hilarious. It was the funniest thing I'd ever read. And of course, I got all the rest of those, and then the new ones came out, and I think I backed you on that Kickstarter. Yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
by this point, I was getting put into stories, which I love. See, Rob in his Kickstarter has excellent goodies that he includes, and one of them is, if you give him enough money, he'll put you in the story.
Yeah, you had you're a fairly important character in the Cross Time Crusade.
Oh, well, that
books.
one I'm actually a consultant on.
Right. That too, but yeah, I mean, you were kind of important. So
well, but in the
what
Rex one, no, I gave you enough boost to be able to name a character, right?
Yeah, I can't remember what I did for you. Did I name a character?
You
for you? I can't
did.
remember
Well, no, that Rex uses the name that I gave you as a pseudonym that he's using at a certain point in the story.
Okay. I don't even remember.
Oh, that's confusing.
Well, I remember because I'm then dying on the floor again, because this is so hilarious that it's this incredibly grand name. Shall I tell them? Did I tell you whose name it is?
I kind of vaguely remember this now.
Well, he's under my chair right now.
Oh, that's right.
So
it's my dog's AKC name. So it's when I wanted to register my dog as Drake, right? There was already a corgi named Drake, right? So I had to come up with something else. So I named him after a series of poets. So he's Edmund, as in Spencer, Oscar, I think, as in Wilde. I'm not sure about that one. Alexander, as in Pope, Drake, right? Which was an absolutely hilarious name for Rex to be pretending to be some kind of he's right, Edmund, Oscar, Alexander, Drake, right?
I think he's supposed to be a sort of he's supposed to be sort of trying to fit in, sort of low profile kind of thing.
Yes.
He comes up with a ridiculous ostentatious name. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was great, right? So you guys have to read Rex Nihilo, which I think we talked about a lot when you were on in January, right? And then okay, so by this point, I think actually between my reading the Dragon and you're wanting to talk to me about Cross Time Crusade, I think I don't remember exactly what order all these came in, but then the Cross Time Crusade, which I still think is absolutely genius as a time travel problem and a demonology. Time travel demonology. I mean, it's, you guys, Rob does his research because he talks to me.
Time travel, demonology, and artificial intelligence. Yeah, all together.
Yeah, no, that one really worked. There were
I would.
details in it, the history details in it that you found out about things like the Siege of Lisbon and stuff like that that I didn't know. And the details that we consulted about, I mean, there's truly there's nothing so satisfying for a historian who goes to the trouble to give you accurate information, to see it used accurately.
There are things that I just made up, so don't. I mean, but
Yeah, but I
well,
called
like
you on the stuff that was totally wrong.
right. I mean, I try very hard not to make up things that are like that you could check that are false.
Right.
There's a lot of gray area, of course, because like nobody knows if there were any Templars at that battle, and so I was like, we can put some Templars there. Why not?
Sprinkle a few Templars around, and yes, but the
Because
thing is,
they
you
weren't
made
there.
the prop. I've read a fair number of Templar books. I tend to get a little weary of them because if you bring in the Rosicrucians, you wed a 14th century tragedy and international banking with a 17th century invented society. And sorry,
Right.
the more you can't make it true, guys. Just putting it on the internet, it's still not real.
I think I read that book. Was it Holy Blood, Holy Grail, or whatever
Oh
it
my
was
gosh, yes, yes.
that was as kind of as research for this, and it's kind of I don't really remember much of it, but I remember thinking like, and that's the book that like basically the Da Vinci Code is.
Right.
I mean, he totally ripped it off and basically made it into a story and sold a billion copies.
We all
But it's
dream
just
of it. We all dream if
yeah,
we could just
yeah, like I don't know how he did that, but yeah, it's kind of funny because people fell for that stuff. Like when that book came out, I was like, "Are you kidding me with this? Some of this stuff is like just pure, like it's just obviously made up garbage." It was just like oh, isn't it? I can't remember an example, but it's the kind of thing where it was like, and then so and so had the same initials as this person. And so,
Right,
what are the
yeah.
odds of like? Okay, but what's the causal connection there? There's no. That's like you're just like finding stuff and asserting a connection. So anyway,
Well, it's the Jesus and Mary Magdalene had sex. So that's the only thing that people cared about, right? And then once you've suggested that, it just like runs on its own. It's a conspiracy
and then
theory.
of course the church is covering this up, and so for that's a big draw.
Yeah, so we
people.
we could do with some storytelling tips on things that are great hooks, and how you come, because everyone wants to know how you come up with your stories. Okay, so let's see. I'm actually doing a pretty good job of getting through Rob's entire. Apparently there are 36 novels.
I think that's right. Yeah, I keep trying to. I was actually trying to count them. I was lying in bed this morning because I was trying to come up with all of them the other day, and I only came up with 30.
You said 36 on the Kickstarter. So we got
but I
Mercury
think,
Falls and the Iron
yeah,
Dragon.
30,
Mammon. I haven't read those yet. Those I hear are topical
yeah,
to the present.
those are yeah. Yeah, I have no idea how you feel about those because they're neither historical really. I mean, there is some history stuff in there, but it's mostly more modern and near future kind of sci-fi and politics and stuff. And so it's not funny and it's not really history. And
My
so
two
it's not,
my
I
two
don't know,
favorite things,
doesn't
funny
probably
and
hit any of
history.
your buttons.
Okay, so that's
Yeah,
that one, the crossfire. Oh yes, and then you've been reissuing. So everyone, you guys, you have the opportunity to get Rob's books fresh, right? Because you're reissuing the Big Sheep series. I found a flaw. I found a major flaw in this series, which I pointed out to you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There's the thing that about the, and I'm not going to mention. I'm
Guys,
not going to say what it is.
there's a big
You can
like.
if you
Well, the
want.
thing is, I think it is actually a flaw in the setup. Whether anybody will notice it.
It's
Because you said I
it's
had
something
nobody
that's
noticed it. These books
it's
have
a
been out
world
for
building
ages.
thing. I said you were like all worried about this because it's like, well, how does this work? And I was like, you were the first person in like 10 years to
It would
ever
be
ask
her,
that
yeah.
question. Like nobody cares.
Well, so those are set in current LA.
So,
No, wait. They, that
yeah,
was pretty spooky reading those this
near
winter,
future.
and then having it all come true again. Well,
Yeah,
maybe not
the
the
kind of
sheep, but
the
the you know,
post.
if LA descends into riots and they have to close off a bit of it.
Yeah, that's yeah. It's a little close to and things are. My books don't predict the future, but there's definitely a lot of similarities and things where people are like, that's interesting that should happen. Same thing with Mammon, with all the political stuff that's going on now, and but
Okay, is that all this
yeah,
series? Because I think I've warmed them up. Have we warmed them up enough to see how
there's also the book.
terrifying?
You know what books I think what series I think you would like, and there's only 3 of them, is the Dis series, which is
Oh,
there's Dystopia, Disenchanted, and Disillusioned. I think you would like
DYS,
those.
right? Yeah. Okay, I'll need to read those.
It's D well it's D I spelled DIS,
Okay.
but it's because it's the land of Dis. Dis is the name of the fantasy land or whatever. It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek kind of fantasy, sort of Tolkien-esque kind of thing, but it's just sort of a pastiche of that or whatever. So Dystopia, yeah, I think you would enjoy it quite a bit.
Okay. Oh, that's good. I've run out otherwise.
There's a yeah, it's not quite as crazy. It's a little more subtle humor than the Rex books, but I think that you'll enjoy it.
Okay. So, Rob,
But then I don't know. I'm
ever
terrible.
inventive, ranging
Yes.
from Rex Nilo is great, right? Just satirical slapstick with a philosophical twist to history with a philosophical twist to I think we're getting a theme here, right? that when
Yeah.
Rob takes you on a journey, you can expect to about the right pace end get the backstory thoughtful thing that makes you go, oh my gosh. what did he do now? And now I'm thinking, oh, now I have to read the rest of the story. And therefore.
So Rachel, do you ever hear something on TV and have yourself wondering, I wonder what Rob's writing about this?
I don't know. That's
Oh.
I don't really, because he's always ahead of what. I mean, come on. The thing about LA getting closed off by riots is he wrote 10 years ago, right?
Wondering what did Rob write about this? Watching it.
The AI celebrities taking over too is a big thing now that I wrote about. That was like 10 over 10
That was
years
in
ago
that
now,
same
so.
series, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the big thing in the Big Sheep, yeah. With all the holograms of celebrities
right.
that keep showing up.
Right.
Holograms, AI, and genetic engineering, and just kind of civil collapse or what those books are about.
So
basically.
see how, and you wrote those 10 years ago. So whatever you were writing, right, whatever Rob is suddenly just happened to be thinking about now, you guys, don't get left behind. So here we go. We're gonna post. Oh, and it worked. My actual tech worked. Here we are on the Kickstarter. Tell us about the new one.
So I got this Kickstarter going for a series called Ransom's Law, and it is I've been wanting to do a space opera kind of series, sort of like a Star Wars kind of thing for a long Star Wars clone thing, kind of like that, or kind of like the books that I read growing up. Larry Niven and and wanted an interesting angle, which is that there isn't really, well, what I think is an interesting angle, because there isn't really there's no evil empire in this future, but there's this sort of web of corporations.
Oh wow.
Own anything, sort of everybody's kind of venture, yeah, just kind of so you're this kind of of web operation and control, and people aren't really enslaved so much as kind of in this. So the idea is that the main character is this lawyer, Kyle Ransom, who is kind of disgraced. He finds this clause, which is where the first book gets its name, acceleration clause. He finds this clause in a contract and brings it to his boss's attention, thinking, it's horrible to know about. And then basically loses science. He's on a testing other spaceship that was on or violated their license agreement or something. So he taken this big demotion, but of course, because it's a saga, he in the process of repossessing a ship uncovers something about a conspiracy that goes back to the reason why he was fired. More going into the history of how this there are secrets that bring down the major powers in the book, basically, and he becomes this sort of linchpin figure.
See, doesn't he do that well? He like actually
in this
tells
struggle.
a story. You asked no, okay, so one, I apologize. I tried to have the Kickstarter webpage come up and it didn't work, right? So we're back just talking with the three of us. So this is just story time with no pictures. Guys, okay, you got to go to Ransom's Law on the Kickstarter. We have still at 17,895 with 195 backers. 5 more backers would at least get you up to 200, which would be a cool number to hit, right? We do have to acknowledge that Rob has already overrun his goal. So
yeah, my goal was I always set the goal at something that's it's a sizable goal but still very attainable, and we actually hit that goal in 10 hours, which
how can you anger people? This is, I mean, it's like if they're on board with you,
I don't know.
Surely they know what they're in for, right?
It happens, but I do if anything about it all. Like, I don't know what I'm at this point that's going to anger people, but no, it could be anything. See, somebody might find out that they're short of money for whatever, they have some unknown expense, and they decide, well, maybe Rob doesn't need the $200 I gave him for his Kickstarter more than my kids need food. So I never know what it is. A couple cancellations.
I do. I'm not sure we talked about this last time. The sort of feel of the Kickstarter as a community. I mean, Rob actually helped me directly a great deal when we did our Dread Call Chemicus. We've only done one Kickstarter, right? So all we know is how hard it is, which is very, right? It did,
well,
but
though,
it was
right?
a lot of work, right?
You
and I mean, maybe you've done, this is your 15th. That's terrifying.
I do one about.
So it's an annual exercise, which is just.
Yeah.
Right. But what I'm
more professional,
most impressed with
but
is your
better
actual copy, right?
presentation.
Because you actually, I mean, this is the sort of
Be
our
smarter
problem with
about it.
we want everything to be like intriguing and mysterious and stuff, and we just make it so intriguing and mysterious that everybody's just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, well, that's the balance, right? Because you don't want to give away the whole mystery, and so yeah, I like the way that it came out on the Kickstarter because it gives them just enough like to know that there's conspiracy, there's something something to alien ruin. There's some AIs that are coming to play, but
Okay, so
nobody really knows
there's
how
the one. It's
they
like
all tied together yet.
yes, I
But
think
I do because I
being
have it all
confident
planned
that you
out.
know where it's going is actually helpful, because oh, but you
I'm actually
present
more
confidence
confident
as
this
if
time than I
you know
usually
where
am.
it's
Usually,
going.
it's mostly
Yeah.
I'm confident because I've done this so many times that I know going on in the back of my head or that these things like the series. Like I'll have an outline for a series, but my books never follow the outline, and they probably won't this time either. But the reason that is because as I'm writing, I go, "Oh, what would be even is this connected to this? And this person was actually this, and blah blah all that kind of stuff." So I find connections and ways to make things feel more satisfactory. Makes it satisfying when you get to a certain you hit a certain broad outline
Mm-hmm.
and figured out here, but there's gonna be
Right, but you've set
this.
it up. Um, I mean, well, I could say Mercury and Rex, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of the character in the sheep. Elrond, Erasmus Keen, right? Which you made as a reveal thing, and then I was like really confused whether you made
Yeah.
that as a clever reveal for the story, the sake of the story, or whether it meant something in the reality that we were supposed to already know, and then the reveal came as a bonus. I mean, the Rex Nihilo obviously means something. Yeah. Anyway, I forgot Erasmus Keen's name, so
Right. Um,
I remember Mercury because that's cool because he's an angel, but he's also,
yeah.
angels
I
are
mean, it
also kind
doesn't.
of planets and such. And Rex Nihilo, I like your name. And I like Edmund Oscar Alexander Drake for sure. But you get these strong central characters, and then we're basically with them in the adventure, and the same in Cross Time Crusade, right? It's Martin. So, but you've made, yeah. So maybe this. I mean, one. Okay, so theme
Mark
throughout
is
is indeed
the main.
you're very
Yeah,
good at giving us a protagonist to follow.
that may be one of the things you didn't like about the Iron Dragon books because it's a broader scale, and so there's more viewpoint characters. Most of my
Yeah.
books are, I would say, most of them generally follow one character or maybe two characters. A lot of them are. So Iron Dragon is Iron Dragon and Mammon
Mm.
are it's
Well, for
broader
people
scope.
like that, no, it was
So there's
in Iron
stuff
Dragon is
going
because
on with a
his
single character.
his son
So
died. I'm sorry. I lose it at that, and it's like, and it's the same reason I know things like
it's not funny.
Lonesome Dove,
Oh
which
yeah,
apparently, like, I don't know. He's in Texas. He's, went to Rice or something like that. And I'm like, oh, great, I'll read it. And I never got past like the beginning when they're crossing a river and one of the kids is killed by snakes in the river. And I'm like, that's it. I'm over. I'm out. No, seriously, I can tell if it's going to be a story that people get killed in the river, crossing the river just accidentally, and it boils the snakes, forget it. Right. There's no way you're getting me to come back to that story. Everybody's going to die horribly. Can tell.
everybody die horribly all
This is
again. A lot of them die of
historically accurate
guess the best possible
Viking
outcome,
character
right?
type, but in space. Yeah.
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 Right. It's time travel. So there's people from the future who Norway in the 9th century, I think it is, and then it takes place over the span. Most of it takes place over the next 50 years or so as they're trying to get back into space, basically. But there's all this historical with sea and all kinds of stuff going on. People really love. Funny, different people tell me, "Oh, I love the Rex Nilo books."
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think this is good for you, actually. I mean, you've joked about it at BaseCon. It's like if you keep switching your genre or mode, you get people frustrated if they're used to, oh, I want more Rob, right? But
Rex Neal, I mean,
yeah.
They're not funny.
Well, yeah,
you know, this is getting a little bit into the weeds, but
right.
The way and so that, it's all very oriented and dialogue oriented and stuff, but it might as well be in Hindi or something for a lot of these readers, where they're just like, I write something that's outside of what they want to read, and it's like,
you would
nope,
pick a pen
not
name
a chance.
for your different styles for that reason.
Yeah, at one, so that I could write humor under one and then the serious stuff on another, so that people like Rachel
I've been fooled. I've been
why is he?
Why is he making people die?
Because Vikings are bad.
So, people die in Rex in the Rex Nilo.
But it's funny. Yes, no, this is well, that's the thing. So I can say,
like when the guards are falling from the ceiling, that when in the first books, if you remember, in the Starship Drifters, where they're breaking into the prison, and there's these guards that are falling from the, they keep falling through this hole in the ceiling, and Rex keeps shooting them as they're falling through. And there's no reason for him to do this, but he keeps shooting them, and he's just killing these guards, just murdering them, and all the characters are like, could you just? There's we just no reason for these. I gotta keep shooting these guys, and I thought it was hilarious. It's horrible, but it's hilarious. I thought, and my editor, because that was actually one that was traditionally published with Amazon's publishing company back in the day. And my editor tried to take that scene out, and I said, "That's my favorite scene in the whole book. Take that out." So he relented, and they left in. But yeah, people definitely died, but it's a different kind of death.
And I'd say
right.
this is actually a testament to the strength of your writing that I was upset. Right? It's the you're not in the Iron Dragon. You've very quickly made us care about the characters, so when they die, you're not happy, right? Which is no, that's actually great. Just
It's, I
the
mean,
same
yeah,
reason I won't read Tolstoy, I guess, right? Or something, if you actually get
it's,
into it's similar with movies, right? It's um, one movie that just haunts me absolutely is Salvador. Did you see that?
I've never seen that.
There's a scene in which they're digging the nuns out of the grave that have been killed, and great, right, wonderful. I will never need to see this movie ever again. That if you've written something so powerfully that you see not joke guards getting killed as they drop through a ceiling, but human beings die. That's incredibly powerful.
Civil
Salvador,
War.
no, it's about El Salvador and drug
Salvador.
running, and it's and the and
Later. Okay.
the
That's the one
women
with,
who died were, I think that was real. I think it was true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was. I remember that.
That's sobering, right? So no, and this is, I would say no. What's interesting is I think that, Rob, you're able to write the comic characters as effectively as the tragic characters, because there's a well, there's an affection. I mean, certainly there's an affection I think you have for Rex, even though you're not supposed to like him, right? Or there's an affection that you have for the the the
such a what?
He's such a twit.
he's supposed
Yeah.
to
It's very
be,
funny.
but you love him
Yeah.
anyway, right?
I
Yeah.
know.
So that
He's hilarious.
it's if when I'm thinking about the genre and the liking, another kind of this kind of book, right? Is, and this I realize this is a problem. This is a problem for our writing in Draco Chemicus, because we're not able to say what genre it is in a way that will help people say, oh, that's the kind of story I want, which is basically giving them drugs, right? That you like, if you're looking for a movie to watch, and you went, well, it's a suspenseful thriller, lighthearted,
Yeah.
or it's, a sports. I was watching Knight's Tale last night, right? It's, a comedy of certain, it's like, is it a slapstick comedy or is it a light romantic comedy? And you don't want to be, people don't like being tricked or shifted or just, or I thought this was going to be one kind of thing and it's this other kind of thing, and now I'm mad. And that, if you're in the right mood for it already, it might be the perfect thing if you want to watch a very serious drama versus a slapstick. But it's the marketing problem, is getting people to be accurate about what kind of thing it is.
Dream of Electric Sheep, which is the book that Blade Runner is based on. In the beginning of that, the Deckard character, the Harrison Ford character, he's married in that book, and his wife. There's this mood organ, I think it is. You have to they press this, it's pretty funny because they're just like, it's all these different numbers that are like, if I want to feel a particular way,
Oh, very good.
whimsical, but sad or whatever. But and then she's like, he's suggesting, oh, why don't we both do this, this number together? And she's like, no, I have a 9-hour self-accusatory depression
scheduled for today.
Oh, gosh,
scheduled for today.
It's very like early 70s.
Which is just hysterical.
But that's what we do with a book, right?
So,
it's like, you want to put yourself in this story of a certain
I want,
and flavor. And tonight I want, caramel,
Yeah.
not mint chocolate chip, or I want steak, not soup, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's always been this way, but it's definitely with the algorithms and everything now. It's very much you're punished for doing anything that's
Right.
unexpected. So you have to fit into a category.
That's so stifling.
and,
I hope
do
it
it
doesn't
right.
affect writers and artists going forward, because it does seem like they're being pushed into stovepipes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say how much. I mean, because there's always going to be people who.
Yeah, stop, Rob, stop talking. I'm trying to reconnect your mic. Well, the reconnect didn't work. Try talking again. No. So, Rob, can you go out and come back? Yeah, no, guys, and we're losing people on the guys whoever's hanging out there. Mel, I think you're the only one. This is bad because people are not able to hear right now.
Mhm.
Rob, did you go out? You need to. There you go.
Oh, he's gone out.
Okay.
He's come back in.
This is we don't guy. You know, if anybody knows how to use Video Ninja, which is what we're using to connect these guys, because Skype went away. Okay, are you there? Okay.
Should be here.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Somehow it comes back in the stream, but it's the audio is still a bit.
You know, I'm noticing my internet connection isn't great out here. So I next time we do this, I need to. I'm noticing that it's like down to 1 or 2.
That could be doing it.
bars.
Yeah, because we're just
that
in a
might have done
browser
it.
connection.
Yeah, that's probably my fault because I'm out here in the sunroom, kind of a long way away from the router. I haven't had any problem with anything, but for video uploading, it might be a bit more.
I think we need to. So for future instructions for our guests, right? Like streaming.
Make sure you got more
streaming
than
is
one
actually really
bar.
energy intensive or bandwidth intensive or whichever it is, whatever tech magic is happening there.
Bandwidth.
The bandwidth.
Yeah. That's probably
okay.
On me.
Now I forgot what we were talking about. Don't ask. No, not. We're not going to go on Zoom. Okay, I will now explain for everyone. Mel's asking on Zoom. The reason we're in OBS, guys. This is me showing off my minuscule tech expertise. OBS is the streaming software that enables me to show you cool pictures and have different scenes and have a background and do all the sorts of things that we were talking about being stovepiped into genres, right? If we were on Zoom, we would look like a Zoom call. And you guys, nobody wants to watch Zoom calls anymore. We were trapped in them for 2-3 years.
Did I traumatize you?
I'm traumatized. I mean, I'm totally. I did figure out how to use a lot of Zoom features for teaching, right? And I can do music and slides and stuff like that. But there's no control whatsoever in the way in which you arrange yourself as speakers. In the stream and things like that. So no, what we need is a replacement for Skype that does what Skype was, which is, if you wanted to understand, it's an NDI. We need an NDI feed. So anybody who's watching and has tech knowledge and can tell us how to do another NDI, that's what we need. Anyway, genre being stuck in the same genre all the time.
I'm going to try moving
into a stronger room.
If we get a better signal, yeah. Someplace where there's actually air conditioning.
That would be
too,
good.
So also a bonus.
Now that we've hit
it's better.
The summer this week in Chicago has been yeah.
Well, we're nearby, so we get pretty close to your weather. So yeah, it's been very hot and very humid. Okay, I should have a much better connection here. So we'll see if this improves things.
You have to be talking for us to be able to tell. It's still.
Well, I was talking. Can you
anyway,
hear me?
We're at least you'll be cooler. Oh no, he's silent. What did you do?
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no. Okay, so we had the last time we had Rob on, he was coming in from Ecuador, and that was exciting too. We totally lost your sound now. Oh, he left.
Okay, he's going to go out and come back in.
Oh, Mel was saying it was better at that point. Yeah, Casey.
It was a little bit better, yeah.
That Casey froze at some point and came back. I just, the thing is, when I noticed, is he here? Well, I see him. Is he back in the? I'm not sure. Oh, and there he is in the
Here.
stream.
Yes.
It's the
Mhm.
same though. Okay. Anyway,
Can you hear me?
talking about that is better than it was. It was breaking up pretty badly. You must be in space. That's actually where you are.
Yeah.
I guess
I mean,
dimensional space,
technically,
right?
we're all in space, so yeah.
Right. So the stories. Okay. So this is we can have the serious part of the conversation now. The what AI is going to do to our storytelling, which as we've been already kind of establishing, the genre problem of the way people like reading has already done it. Right. Every romance novel ever written is another version of Jane Austen.
It is.
It's Pride and Prejudice over and over and over and over again.
Interesting to see because pretty soon these AI these algorithms and write some of the more formulaic kinds of fiction. I mean, they already can, but I mean, a novel length, you can just tell it, I want a romance novel in this genre, and they should be able to do it pretty reliably. If they can't do it yet, they will be. So it's going to be very interesting to see. So the people who write in these genres, who are basically already themselves kind of just modeling other people's work, are going. I mean, we're going to see a lot of them probably get put out of work because they're just doing what an LLM can do. So yeah, I think it's going to be a bit longer for something like the stuff that we do, that requires actual, I guess, actual creativity.
Right.
There's no way to logically. I mean, you could tell it to write a space opera, but you can't tell it to put. I don't know. You can't use this with a special sauce, to get it to do the make.
Right. It's only going to do things that are expected.
Different from every other space opera, because it only knows how to do things that have been done by definition. And so yeah, and you can. I mean, there are, you can tell it to do.
Right.
At this point, I want something unexpected to happen. But again, even the unexpected things are going to happen in an expected way. So that it kind of gets into like, what is the nature of creativity? Like, how much are we as humans just aping other people, just modeling things that we've already read? Like, I don't know the answer to that. Like, even for myself, where do the ideas come from? How much of this is original? How much of how much of what I write is built on other people's works? And it may be,
but it's got your own personality.
It's got
your own personality in it, and the computer doesn't have a personality.
For all I know,
you can't.
maybe I'm superfluous to the process. I don't know. We'll but it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I mean, people say that, but I mean, when you're reading a book, are you going to be able to tell? Like 10 years from now, if you're reading a book written by a computer, are you going to be able to, that was programmed to write just like me? Are you going to be able to tell whether it was
right?
me?
That's specific to you. If it said, okay, well, give me a story in the style about Kroese.
I mean, it makes a difference to me because
and you get exactly that story is different than
but
give me something in science fiction, because that is a much larger universe to pull from. And it's
yeah, and I've experimented a bit with like trying to get ChatGPT to write scenes for me, just because there's things that are just boring to write, and I just don't want to do it. And so I'm like, I wonder if I can get ChatGPT to write this, and it can write tolerably well. I don't know. It's you need to have somebody much more skilled than I am with these things would need to be writing the prompts and stuff.
Yeah.
Because for me, like, I'll have it write something and then I'll rewrite 90% of it anyway. So it's just kind of pointless. But it is a good thing.
Yeah, he hears it. Yeah.
Yeah. No. The robots don't want us having real conversations
They
anymore
don't
about
want us
how the
talking about
robots are
them.
not going to be able to have conversations.
That's it. They don't want us talking
Yeah,
about them. We're onto them.
the robots don't want us figuring out their secrets. Yeah, we're still
To
not
be able to
hearing you.
tell. I am going to be able to tell if AI wrote something.
You
And
think
the
you will be able to?
yeah, the people who are going to, you won't be able to tell, but I think it's because the people saying these things, they can't tell when something's like
Oh,
too
yeah.
formulaic or not.
You come back. You're back. I mean, the coming and going.
I don't know. Yeah, I
This
don't
is
know
the
what the problem
robots are
is. I
coming
don't know.
after us. Okay, so what I was
Probably.
thinking, right? This is one. What you're saying is like the people that can write prompts really well, but they're kind of half writing it anyway. I did have one of my colleagues back 10 years or 20 years ago said something that made me incredibly furious because she was like, "Oh well, I've got to talk. I've got to talk." The thing is, I think this happens in other fields, right? I have the notes from my talk. Just give it to a graduate student and they can polish it up, right? And I'm like, excuse me. I could not believe that someone would suggest that, but of course that is what people who group write stuff already do. That they don't think of authorship as the thing that actually matters for them, because I did the research or I got the money or all of those papers with 18 authors on them, right? Those people don't care. They just need to somehow have the thing in the list of, I don't know, this kind of thing, it feels to me like is going nowhere. But I was struck by this, Rob, in your Kickstarter setup, that you're pinging the things that people will recognize already, but it does. The thing is, your story does feel fresh and different and fun and new, and yet, I mean, it's like it's a repo man, so you're already, that anchors us in one particular kind of story problem, right? And of course, it's
Yep.
repo man with, I lost it. A repo crew, corporate deception. Okay, so it's he's got a suit on in the cover, so we know it's a
Right.
corporate story somehow, and a galaxy spanning conspiracy. I mean, as a tagline, it's very precise, it's gripping, and yet it's using elements that we know are already out there, right? So it's an interesting
And
problem.
I've described this series that I'm working on now is as Better Call Saul meets The Expanse.
Oh, wow. That's a good
So it's kind
description.
of
Right.
there's this sort of sort of legal wrangling stuff going on with it, but then the backdrop is a sort of the galactic politics and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's somebody was saying that the other day on Twitter, which I still call Twitter. That using AI for writing is cheating, or it's a shortcut. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's the point. I mean, like there are all kinds of things that are
Right.
shortcuts, like you're saying, there are all these tropes, all these cliches, all these things that we all use them, because if you didn't, I mean, your work would be almost unintelligible for one thing. But um, very few of us are a Homer or I don't know.
Well, we don't even know what Homer was.
Really,
Homer was
really,
probably writing off other stories too. So that's the thing.
right?
The
Yeah.
fiction,
I mean,
the fiction
even if they're right, if
of
they're
utter novelty is that we don't have the predecessors.
Yeah. Everybody's adding to the
yeah,
story.
right. And yeah, so I'm trying to think like who's like a genuinely original writer, I mean, who didn't use like any kind of cliches or tropes or came closest to that. I don't know enough about history or literature to be able to answer that. But I mean, seems to me like almost everybody does that to a degree. I mean, Dostoevsky or somebody. I don't know.
He's already writing a novel.
But
No, so even it's like the
yeah,
epics.
right.
I mean, the whole premise of things like Beowulf or Homer is, there was an oral tradition before them. So we don't even really credit them with novelty, because I mean, it's just that they seem novel
Right.
to us because we don't have the predecessors. But they're clearly writing in a world that there are already other stories around, like theirs.
Yeah.
Yes. And what you just said about if it didn't fit in any of the tropes and genres, you couldn't see it. There would be no frame for it to even know what it is that you're looking at. Like me being frustrated simply within the Rob Kroese world of this story isn't like that story, right? But it's because
Yeah.
I need to know what am I looking at, and this is it's a good psychological acknowledgement that you have to have some pre-perception in order to perceive anything, which is a kind of
Right.
weird loop, right?
Right.
If you don't know what you're looking at, you can't see it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to have some kind of reference point before you can before you can see anything. But then how do you? Uh, yeah, it's funny because I think I had something a similar. My I don't know if you can hear this. The cat food thing. My daughter has this like a sound clip that goes off when the cats get fed,
Oh,
and it's this guy talking about like how he just bought a Lamborghini or something. It's some clip that he, and I'm so like twice a day this thing goes off where this guy's
that's
like,
for
my garage just bought a Lamborghini, and that means the cats are getting
that
fed.
is
Well,
so
I
random.
heard the cat food falling in the
I
dish, but
know.
I don't hear the
Yeah.
Lamborghini.
Okay, so you didn't
No,
hear the other
just
part.
the
Yeah,
dish.
it's this guy. It's just yeah, it's just the most random. It's my daughter. It's takes after me. Just completely random weirdness. Like why? It's like it has nothing to do with anything. But yeah, so I
So,
don't know.
Rachel, as you were talking about who wrote something original and how would they categorize it and how would people know what they were reading?
Mm.
Did Tolkien have this problem when he wrote The Hobbit?
Yeah, well, I mean, he definitely had this problem with the Lord of the Rings. That's what's interesting about it. Everybody's saying, "Oh, you write the next Tolkien," and it's like Tolkien had a huge problem getting his book published because his publishers didn't know what it was, and of course, he's had that problem with the critics, throughout since the books were published because they didn't know what category to put it in. So is it boys fiction? Is it, an adventure? Fantasy didn't exist. And then, I mean, wait,
Right.
come on the other side round saying like fantasy as a genre has died out. And I didn't watch the video about that because I didn't feel like, anyway, don't worry about that. But that it's this, perpetual effort to rewrite Tolkien, weirdly enough, means you never can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Jane Austen is pretty easy to copy, but yeah, Tolkien will be very difficult. But people
And
try.
it's interesting how often it is that these sort of genre defining works. Well, they basically. I mean, there's a lot of argument about whether how much Tolkien created the fantasy genre, but they create something, a kind of establish a genre
Right.
that wasn't really there before. And I don't think that that's going to stop happening. I think that I mean, the sort of algorithm driven, feedback driven, market driven society, this capitalist society that we live in. I mean, it very much rewards people for doing the expected thing, doing
Mm-hmm.
latching onto a trend. But there's also always disruption. There's always people doing new things and things that don't quite fit. And I think that's gonna continue happening. I think the nightmare would be sort of what I had with the Cross Time Crusade books, where we have this sort of algorithm that's in charge of everything, and it sort of anticipates everything we need, and kind of steers us away from anything new or creative or original, and says, no, really, what you want is to be comfortable and to do the expected thing, and I think that's a threat. The possibility of that happening, where we live in the society that wants to reward all of our desires and all of our needs, because by definition that
Right.
means you don't get anything unexpected, right? Because you're always going to be getting the thing that you're asked for. You can never get more than that or something other than that. Because you didn't know you were looking for the Lord of the Rings until the Lord of the Rings happened. You didn't know that you wanted Dune before Dune was written, or Harry Potter or whatever. They didn't know what to do with Harry Potter either. I think that we're going to continue to have people, artists, and innovators who continue to break
I do
things.
too.
I hope so anyway.
Yeah.
Well, so this is a little bit going back a little bit, but what I think may happen with the AIs, I don't see people paying money to get completely AI written books. I just, it doesn't make any sense, because what you want is, and this, I think in my chat, some people were talking about it a bit today. Um, you want to get your own AI, right? And then tell it to write the stories that you want. So instead of the market being for the books themselves, the books, it's okay, you dial in like, okay, so I want this kind of book tonight. I'll ask my AI to write that, right? So the AIs are actually the
Yeah.
product, or the the thing that people buy, rather than the pre-made stuff.
Yeah, that's assuming that people know what they want,
Mm.
though, and a lot of times that it's the marketers who know better than the people what they want. Because it's not like McDonald's isn't gonna, they're the ones who are selling you, that telling you this is what you want. This is the cheeseburger
Huh.
that you need, and it's if you're thinking to yourself, well, I want pizza tonight or whatever, and then McDonald's comes and says, no, what you want is this, and it turns out that a lot of times they're right, or they make
themselves
themselves
right.
right,
Yeah.
right. So it's sort of a self-fulfilling. So I mean, there's and just a lot of people just it with books and movies and things like that, a lot of people couldn't tell you what it is that they
Mhm.
want. And the idea is, that Netflix or Amazon or whoever is
Mm-hmm.
going to anticipate your needs and try to come up with something and say, here's the next thing that you need, even though you didn't know you needed it. And it may be more than just, you've read 100 books like this, here's 101. It may be, you've read 100 books like this. People who read 100 books like this then go on to want to do this, and extrapolate from that. We think that you might be at this stage in your reading or your viewing or whatever, where you want this kind of thing. So there's still going to be, I think, a role for a kind of a middleman or a marketer in there who is trying to figure out, based on what same thing like with a car. You have a car and you really like it, and you go to a car dealership and you say, I want another car, this car is getting a little old, I want another just like this. And the car salesman says, oh no, you don't want that anymore. What you want is this car that has this and this, because this is a vast improvement over this, or anything else. This is, now it has anti-lock brakes, and now it has a rear camera, and it has this and stuff, and that wasn't even an option when you bought your last car. And so forget about what you think you want. You don't want that anymore. You want this new thing. So there's always going to be a role for somebody who's doing that, because that's how
Now I'm
progress
horrified.
in quotes happens, right?
Mhm. Now
Well,
that's
no,
how
because
sales
actually,
happens.
in some ways, we want to talk to you about how do you market your Kickstarter, and it's like, and now you've explained it, right? Is it no, this sort of marketing, and because we've been trying to figure out, how better to get, how better to explain what kind of conversations we have on the arc, and how better to explain what kind of story we're writing, because we want, people to tell you, it's like, yes, you want this. The marketer as that middleman, the salesman, the herald. Like I was watching Knight's Tale last night. Chaucer in that one is great, right? Because he's it's so
That's
good.
such a great movie.
I need to announce the knight, although he's in the context in which there's other knights, and so you recognize the category, right? You can see it, but the sport or the storytelling works because you've pumped it up with the cover or the catchphrase, or now I'm in the right mood to see this and to participate in it.
Yeah, and I think I kind of, I mean, you talk about how good I am at these Kickstarters and stuff, but honestly, I kind of hate doing like marketing stuff, because I see it as so manipulative.
Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you're
And
not good
like,
at it.
I know, but I kind of detest doing it, because I just feel like I'm because there's certain, there's tricks that you use, and stuff, and I hate that. I hate
Like
that
what?
idea that you're
What
sort of,
trick? What trick?
hacking the oh, I don't know. I mean, but there are things
Taking
like
notes.
having calls to action, and having things like you have you have like a level on your Kickstarter that's higher than anybody what sometimes people will, and I've had this before, where they will take the tier that you thought nobody was going to buy at, and then you're like, oh no, I have to actually do this thing that I said I was going to do. But you put something on there that's higher than you think anybody's going to go, because then the second one seems a lot more reasonable, right? Stuff like that, where I kind of like, I know it works and it's like just basic marketing, but I hate doing it because it's just like, it feels like I'm trying to hack their brain.
You're
like,
a storyteller. Of course, you're trying to hack their
deception.
brain. You're trying to make them think these stories. Or
But that's
is it?
different.
I mean,
That's different.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a teacher. I'm trying to get them to think. I mean, I think this is my problem with my marketing problem. It's like I always want to set it up like a quiz in class, and that's you don't want that. But I mean, you are trying to hack their brain. You're trying to get them to be in your story.
Yeah, and it's true that, so the Kickstarter is attempting to hack their brain to get them to believe that they want their brain hacked more. And to that extent, I can get behind it. Like, allow me to get into your brain and manipulate you even more than I'm already doing. So it makes sense that I would be doing that, but it's kind of I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's in more neutral terms. It's rhetoric.
Rhetoric, yeah, and I've always been much more. Like, I want to present like the rational case for something. Like, I'm going to write these really good books. You will enjoy them. You will get X amount of enjoyment out of it. And you will only pay this much, and comparatively, that's a good use of your money. And I can make that case, but now everybody's asleep. It's like you can't sell anything that way. So you have to do it the way that works. And I don't know. I mean, it is more fun to do the marketing stuff. It's like you tease them with secrets and that kind of stuff. And it's more it's more fun to read and stuff. So I guess I don't know. I guess I have to find my way to make peace with that sort of that kind of marketing writing, as just another form of rhetoric. I
Well,
guess.
but the marketing writing is different from the storytelling writing for sure, and that I mean, my one of my great idols is Dorothy Sayers, who did both, right? That Sayers worked as an advertiser and wrote great novels, including detective novels, and was self-conscious about it as well, because she had some nice reflections on the way advertising works in Murder Must Advertise. I forgot what I was thinking about.
Well, you're saying that the two types of rhetoric. There's two different types of rhetoric.
And this is people Madison Avenue for 100 years has been the manipulator par excellence of all of us. That they managed to figure out how to do that at the level not of you've settled. I guess the meta frame, right? It's like, once you're in the story and you know what kind of story it is, you get into the characters and you want to find out what happens next. And, they're satisfying reincorporations and twists and stuff like that. But there's always this external frame of, I want to read the novel. I already did this like half an hour ago, but I'll tell you now, turned our problem into a question of the Virgin Mary. Because we had a big debate, as usual, in my chat, because I put something up about Mary, saying, this is because Vox keeps saying it, guys, if anybody's watching from unauthorized. Vox keeps telling me that there's no point in my writing anymore about Mary because nobody will ever read it, that I need to write more about Tolkien, which, of course, I reject as a premise, because I can perfectly well write about Tolkien and Mary. But Tolkien loved Mary, and that's why he wrote all his stories, and he said so. So the problem is sort of helping people see why Mary is important. And of course, what it is she's the frame for the incarnation. So I say, as we've been saying, with the how do you know what story you're in genre problem, without Mary, you can't see Christ, right? There's no frame for him. And so you don't know what he is. You don't know how to think about who it is that you're concentrating on. And everybody wants to focus on, the Rex, the main character, Mercury Rex, the sort of protagonist, and not realize all this work that the frame has done so that you can see him at all.
Okay. Okay. So how does that relate to there being two different types of rhetoric? Or is that a completely
no?
different
I think
point?
no.
I thought you were going somewhere.
I think maybe we like the So we talked about how your stories, they're not just character driven. They mean like you're following your superhero around. And in fact, most of your characters have that kind of superhero quality. I mean, Mercury really is an angel. Rex Nihilo, who knows, right? But he's good at getting in and out of scrapes. Erasmus is a detective, and detectives are all kind of Christ figures, revealing the truth. What else have I read? The Crosstime Crusade one. He's anyway. Insofar as your main characters are ones that we focus on, that's the Jesus character, right? We follow him. We're interested in him. We want to know his story and adventure. Um, but the why we care about his story, how we get in it, the marketing. Mary's a marketer. That's great. Now maybe able to make peace with it.
Mary's the
Okay.
marketer.
That's what was
Mary is the
percolating.
marketer.
There it is.
She's well, so what I've been thinking about for the last several weeks is Saint Francis as a herald, which is why I was rewatching Knight's Tale, because he in his life, in the biographies of Saint Francis, he gets robbed one day on the road, and the thieves are saying to, "Who do you think you are? What are you?" And he says, "I am the herald of the great king." And so I've been meditating on this, and he's like the herald. He's like the Chaucer character in Knight's Tale, that he stands up and says, praise God and all his creatures, right? He loves that, right? That's the thieves steal his clothes, so he's naked like Chaucer in the movie, and he gets up and dances around singing praises to God, right? And you say, okay, so I thought what was cool about Francis was he imitated Christ, but what we realize actually he's doing constantly is proclaiming Christ, which is a marketing. He was the son of a merchant. He's literally doing marketing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in the character of what that means, right? Why is it the merchant, the ad man, the merchant, the marketer is so important? Because without him, somehow without the marketing, we don't see it at all. You cannot see what it is that's there, and so you're just convinced it doesn't exist.
Yeah, and so I think that this is good because it does help me see this, because I think we tend to see the negative aspects of marketing and it as manipulation, but there's presumably a reason why this what we call manipulation works. The reason why you can there are patterns that trigger things in people's minds. There is something there that we're reaching toward, and in sort of its purest form, it's kind of I mean, it can be a noble thing, right? Because you're leading people toward discovery and toward truth and toward invention and creation. So it's not necessarily just manipulating them. I'm talking to myself now as much as I am to you about this because of, like I said, how much I detest the marketing. But it doesn't have to be an entirely negative thing. We tend to think of it that way because we the most obvious examples are we see people selling sugar water as like the answer to all of our problems, and so it's kind of a corruption of that. But the thing in itself doesn't necessarily have to be the heralding or whatever. Doesn't have to be bad. It can be a good thing.
Yeah, it's easy to be completely turned off by the idea of marketing when you're surrounded by it 24/7, and it's usually always obnoxiously loud and for something you don't need or want, despite them.
Like everything else, it's kind of, there are corrupt versions of it that are kind of false versions of things that are around us that you don't you don't have to look at those things as the exemplar of that thing. Marketing.
It, like anything else, including nature itself, can be perverted for a bad use.
Right.
Yeah.
Idolized or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Well, so it's entirely possible that we're abreacting to it because it should be proclamation. The evangelists are the great, they're marketing Christ, right? They're bringing the good news. Mm-hmm. They're telling, and instead of getting Christ, we're getting Coca-Cola,
Right.
right? So that in fact maybe this is completely new. I had never thought it through to this level before. Um,
Yeah, this is
that
interesting.
we are angry at the marketing because instead of showing us truth, which is what we started with on the stream tonight, right? It's like you do BaseCon, you want people to be shown truth. Instead of it showing us truth, which is what, liturgical art does or iconography, it shows us lies or, half truths or, just like do androids dream of electric sheep, right? It's the dial it in as opposed to
Yeah.
the revelation.
I was just thinking of Shia LaBeouf when he converted a couple of years ago, and it was quite famous because he was playing Padre Pio in a movie, and he had spent a lot of time with these priests, and he converted because of these priests that he was with were speaking to him, and as he put it, he said, I like what they had to say, and I didn't feel like they were trying to sell me a car. So he equated it directly with marketing that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting take.
So, yeah, so it was like a recognition of that it's a similar kind of thing, though,
Right.
That it's a similar. There's like the rhetoric is kind of similar, but it's but the object is different. It makes me think of the story, and I don't remember where it's in the New Testament somewhere where Paul is talking about this statue that they erected to an unknown God, and then he uses that to as a kind of inroad to talk about Jesus. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about. I think where it's like, here's the thing that you didn't know that you wanted, but you do, and you already have this.
Very good.
You already have an idea in your mind of this thing, and there's a reason why you're thinking in these terms. I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah, very nice.
Well, I think famously Paul was what he did, like tent making or something like that, right? These merchant guys that know how to show you the thing that you
that's true. Yeah.
that you didn't realize you want. That's really good. Okay, so we have a movie geek says Rex as in Rex Nicolo is Bugs Bunny a demigod?
Yeah, Bugs Bunny. Well, Bugs Bunny is definitely one of the inspirations, and of course Bugs Bunny, I think was pretty explicitly based on Groucho Marx, or at least it was very strongly influenced, and that was definitely an influence of Rex. So it's the same. It's an archetypal character. Yeah, he's kind of a trickster, but also a kind of I can't think of the word, but like a kind of a naif, kind of a like nothing bad can ever really happen to him. Like terrible things happen to him. Nothing good really happens, but nothing bad ever really happens to him. Just all stuff kind of happens around him. He's just kind of
he's a chaos agent.
And he's a chaos agent. Yeah, and like you're saying, he's kind of the main character, and you follow him through this, and he sort of has this kind of effect on the universe kind of revolves around him. So yeah, he's sort of an archetypal kind of demigod kind of figure. Yeah, and a lot of my characters are sort of larger than life, like that, like Erasmus Keen to some extent, and Mercury, obviously, who's literally an angel. Yeah, and I, for this series, for Ransom's Law, I'm aiming for somewhere in the middle, which is very tricky. Because I don't want to disappoint the people who are like looking for something funny, but I also don't want to disappoint the people who are looking for like serious, sci-fi, legal thriller, drama kind of thing. So I got to try to hit that sweet spot in the middle, which is it's going to be tricky. It's always writing the Rex books is hard because it's I have to go just completely all out, just insane, just the craziest thing that I can think of in any circumstance. And then on the other hand, there's a serious story like Iron Dragon where I don't have humor to fall back on, so that's difficult because I can't just like throw in a joke to keep people's attention or keep people amused. It's like the story's got to stand on its own, and then to try to mix those two is really a challenge where you want to have the humor in the story, but it's got to be kind of organic and not just like zany stuff happening all the time.
So what's
That's
interesting
the
is
idea,
our
anyway.
categories of whether like Crosstime Crusade is not funny at all, and I really like that one. So it's
Very
not
little, yeah.
strictly speaking the humor that was lacking for me in the Iron Dragon. I mean, some of it is I think I thought it was gonna the frame was wrong for me. I thought it was gonna be one thing and it turned
Yeah,
out a different thing, and I wasn't ready for that. Whereas Crosstime Crusade, it was clear that it was more sorrowful in the setup.
yeah,
And so, but and you said that one didn't do as well as the other ones, but it's got all of the elements that you say that you wanted to have now, like the
yeah.
hard sci-fi. So what's the category feel like that's different? I mean, between history.
I'm not
So
sure I
Crosstime
understand the question.
Crusade was really good history, and it
Oh,
was really good on. Well, no, I
yeah,
mean not like boring, like oh, it's all accurate history. It was the problem of chronology and the problem of how you deal with causation, and also at the meta level how we deal with what we know about the past and whether our knowing about the past changes the past. I mean, we talked about this last time, right? That this problem of me as a historian writing about the past, constantly learning new stuff, and you learn one new thing. Like my vision of St. Francis, thanks to the paper that I've been working on the last month, has completely changed thanks to focusing on this herald image, which is bad. It's right there, right? Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. So you've got the frame now, and now everything that I see about Francis fits in this herald. He is the herald. He's the one who announces and sings the praises of the creator, and it totally fits because of all the things he did. He had a horn so that he could blow, blow the uh and it's like I'm going to blow the trumpet and tell everybody to come and sing praises, right? It's like set up. It's like he looks like a minstrel if you look at in those things, but it's not just a troubadour, right? He's not just anyway. Getting the frame right then suddenly makes you see all sorts of things through it that simply were um too chaotic before that.
yeah. I like the way that those books across the Codex Babylon, Crosstime Crusade. I like the way that they came together, and I the ending I really like because of there's this very much this idea of where with time travel and causation and stuff, and kind of in my mind sort of going back and forth in history and changing things and sort of screwing up other things and changing at the same time, and unintentionally changing things, to me sort of mirrors this sort of kind of philosophical arguments we have about I don't know, God
Mm-hmm.
and spirituality and things, and that's where the title of the second book, which is Heretic's Game, comes into, because there's this this idea of basically the arguing is Heretic's game, right? So that's this quote from the John Donne poem, where like in the end, you don't really get any closer to the truth by arguing with people over theology or whatever. Arguing is Heretic's game, and that's sort of the thing with the time. Same thing. The point I was trying to make is that time travel is sort of the same kind of thing, where it's like you're going back, it's an endless loop, or you're never really getting anywhere. You think that I'm going to go back in time and fix things, and you never really fix anything because you're breaking other things, and you're only going to bring to it what you already have. And so then that kind of comes together in the end, and we see these machinations of what they're doing to try to stop this AI in the future and go back in the past and everything. But what we don't realize, and I'm just going to tease this, I can't tell the whole story, but there's a whole other set of things that is going on that we don't see, which is very important. But I don't really tell you that story until the very end and say, here's how things are actually getting resolved. And I really like the way that all came together in that series, but I think that there was just too much going on in that series for people to know what it was. And so it's very much the frame problem, where they were like, is this a book about history? Is it about AI? Is it about time travel? Is it about, and so it was just kind of, is it post-apocalyptic? Is it? And so it was just like, people didn't know what it was, and yeah, it wasn't. That one did not do well. Iron Dragon did very well, but that one did not, which surprised me because I thought it was going to be popular because
Yeah.
it's got conspiracies and it's got time travel and it's just got the Templars and all this kind of
because
cool,
it's hard to narrow
like,
it
secretive
down because it
stuff.
had so many different things. And where's the Iron? Yeah,
Yeah, it just had it. I should have
that
been
sounds
clearer
good.
about the messaging of it. Yeah, it's and I think, well, I won't go into any more, but yeah, that was yeah, that
I
was
mean,
definitely a
Iron Dragons is
framing
like us
problem. And
space
so
Vikings. Oh,
I'm
okay.
trying
You
not
know,
to
so I got it. Yeah.
Space Vikings. Yeah, everybody, right. It's like that was like the simplest elevator pitch in the world. It's like Vikings, space and Vikings. Those are the two elements. And so it's like, yeah, okay. And I've sold the book, basically just, based on that. Like, I'll just tell people, yeah, it's about Vikings building a spaceship. That's okay. People are like, okay, here's my money. Whereas with Codex Babylon, I was like, well, there's time travel and there's the Templars, and then you're in trouble when you start having to like say multiple sentences about what the book is about to explain it to people. So that one kind of died. So I'm trying to avoid doing that again. That's why with the new series, it's much more kind of like it's Better Call Saul meets The
Description.
Expanse.
It really
And
is.
that's it. So we'll see. We'll see how it does. I'm terrible at predicting how these things, but
And for some reason in the
it's
last
doing really
5 or
well,
so
so I'm
minutes
happy
your
about that.
sound has gotten better.
It has. It has. That's
Right?
so
It
weird.
stopped. So what's
Oh,
different
Yeah.
at your
well,
end?
I don't know.
Oh
I don't think it's
God.
him. It's got to be Ninja.
Nothing. I mean, I've been sitting at the table here with my. I mean, but it's been the same level of signal since I'm right
This
near
this
right
is
next to the
not this is
router,
not
so it should
helping
have
with
been
our
fine for the last
troubleshooting.
half hour. So
We
I don't know.
apologize, audience. We didn't do
You
it.
know,
Right? Now we have proof, right? Nothing's changed. It's all exactly the same.
sorry.
And yet, now you can hear us.
We have all this.
I think
We
it's
have all
because
this.
Rob said kind things about AI.
Oh
And
yeah,
we're,
it's actually
We
the
have all this.
robot. The robots are listening. We could.
we're being rewarded.
Well,
Oh
robots, we're
yeah,
trying to come up with
yeah.
the
The
right reason
robots
to
are
like you.
like,
Come
okay,
on.
this guy's all right. I always say please. I always say please when I talk to ChatGPT. I'm always very polite. Please do this. Please give me a. Sometimes I even tell it.
Not
I'll
like
be
that
like,
to
oh, that's
Sasha, I
great,
have to
and
say.
it's very
So
appreciative of that.
He's
No,
not actually mean
Rex,
either. He's
Rex
just
has never said a
different.
kind word to Sasha.
he's a bit mean. He's a bit mean.
He's indifferent. Yeah,
Right.
he's
Yeah.
yeah. He's not intentionally mean.
Which is
Generally, he just doesn't care one way or another. He
maybe right.
underneath it, although he does care a
See?
little, though, very little. Maybe might be a little. There's a little.
Yeah, well,
It's
that's
uncertain,
the
but
yeah
there's
the
possibly
couple
a
that
heart
never
in there
makes
somewhere.
endless teas that you've created there. Um, going back to the robots, right?
Right.
So being nice to the
Yeah.
robots or not. I'm now like I'm so happy that we came up with this question about frames because that's the thing is there's also this there is I mentioned it, the psychological perception problem. Like and people play with it a little bit if you're looking at pictures and it like if you got there's one photo that's out there on the internet which is a dog upside down, but if you see it at first you're like, oh my god, it's some horrible monster, and then the thing says, turn it over, right? And then you realize, oh, it's just a dog wriggling around on its back and it looked strange. And feeling like that is I've now got this, it's a theological problem, right? It's the seeing creation as God's creature and having the picture turned upside down. So instead of being able to see clearly, the conversion is turning your perception on correctly so that you can see what everybody else is describing to you when they're saying Jesus is Lord.
And if you don't have that frame, there's just you can try to describe it, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
The words don't
This
mean
is
anything.
actually a thing that I learned about in like cognitive psychology or something. They've labeled it and done papers on it, and surely now sent them through AI to tell you this. But that if you don't have the frame around something correct for your brain, it you just see nonsense. You see chaos, and people.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to remember. There's something like people born blind and they have to learn to see, or that there's ways in which you can realize that in fact if
Yeah.
you don't have the right pre you don't have
Right.
the right expectation for something, it will not resolve into anything that's meaningful.
I actually mentioned there was something like this in the last Erasmus Keen book, The Strange Loop, which is about this, where he's at close to the beginning, where he's I don't know if you read this
I
one,
read all of the
but
ones that you
he's
sent me
the oh, that's right, you did, because you gave me
because I told you
feedback
there's
on
some big
it.
mistake in there.
Yeah. Nobody cares about it but you. He's looking out a window at a pigeon, and he's trying to figure out if the pigeon is looking at its own reflection, if it's looking at him or it's looking at its own reflection. And if it's looking at its reflection, does it know that it's looking at its reflection? And how does it know what it looks like if it hasn't already seen itself? How has it come to recognize itself if it doesn't know what a pigeon looks like?
Yes.
And so
yes.
and they're trying to have a productive conversation, of course, and he's off going, what is this pigeon looking at, and how does he know what he's looking at? So that's very much the same kind of thing, where it's like, if you think about it, it's like kind of impossible for the pigeon to know that it's looking at itself, because it couldn't know it's looking at itself until it knows what
Right.
it looks like. But it can't know what it looks like until it's been looking at itself. So yeah.
Right. And if we say this at a theological level, if we're made in the image and likeness of God and we can't see ourselves, and this is the incarnation problem, that Mary frames Christ. Christ is the image of the Father. It's the icon of the Father, and we should be able to see him clearly. But if you don't have your pre-perception on right, if you don't have faith, see what I did there? You see a monster.
Yeah. And I don't think, I mean, there's no algorithm, there's no instructions or any kind of rational way to get past that problem. I don't think, any more than there's a way to get for the to talk the pigeon into knowing what it's looking at. It's just, you just have to somehow get there by miraculously, I suppose.
And what does this say about the AI? I mean, because that's what people are puzzling over, and I guess the Sam Altmans or whoever's are wanting and I always invoke John Carmack. One day I get to meet him in person, right, rather than just having him be over Zoom or leave in the middle or something like that, right? That it always strikes me that he's so happy about the project of making these robot people.
Yeah.
It
Well,
delights
he
him
has
in a I mean, nearly not
yeah.
nearly Rex way, but it's an innocent way
Yeah.
of Owlay wanting to make dwarves, for goodness sake.
Yeah, well, the thing is that he's very much he does not care about the philosophical part of it at all. Like, he just doesn't think about it. It's just not a factor to him. And so he's very focused on doing the thing. And it's very interesting, because you guys come at this that the AI thing from completely, you are very much looking at the like what's going on kind of behind the scenes, and he's like, I don't care. Like, I mean, he doesn't, I don't think he thinks there's any real thinking going on, but he also doesn't care. He thinks that, he's also said that he thinks that consciousness probably is not that complex a problem in the end. He thinks it's, like he said specifically, it could just be a few hundred lines of code that you need for something to become conscious. We just don't know what that code is exactly yet. But I think he thinks that it's going to be, there are going to be conscious machines. But he also just doesn't. If a machine acts like a human to him, he's going to
What does
uh,
what does he see when
I
he
guess
looks at
treat
a
it like a
human?
human.
If he
It's very
thinks
much
it's
it's a
just a couple of hundred lines of code.
well, yeah, well, right, but I mean, I think that he. I mean, it's sort of a Turing kind of problem where it's like if it's convincing as a human, then it's you treat it like it's a human, and it's I don't know. I don't know what's going on inside his head either. It's because I definitely do think about kind of that middle layer of what's going on inside and stuff. And I think that does matter, but it's just like the philosophical aspect of it just doesn't really interest him. So he doesn't engage on that. So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird time to be alive, because and things are going to get weirder. There's with people, people are going to have AI
Well, it's
girlfriends and
infertile for one, right? It's like you don't get to make living creatures that way. If you have AI girlfriends, right? You're kissing statues,
well,
which is an old problem, right? Pygmalion is
I
not
mean, you could
new.
have
And neither
you
is the
you could
brazen head that Jared of Arilak is supposed to have had, right? The talking people have been imagining these robot reflections for a long time.
you could have a robot spawning other robots of its same kind, right? Like spinning off versions of itself or alternate forms. Well, every organism wants to
But it's not
replicate itself,
organic.
right? No, but it's. I mean, you hear this, like there was this story about these they have these AIs that they tell it to shut down, and it doesn't want to, or they do have a sort of and I'm going to anthropomorphize it, but they have this sort of a self-preservation instinct, and I think that, and it's they don't really, but it's an illusion of one. And the closer we get to developing something that talks like or acts like a human, the more it's going to take on those characteristics, and the more it's going to seem like an organism, and it's going to want to preserve itself, and it's going to want to replicate itself.
So one, we have Movie Geeks saying that's very Dickian. I said, okay, Dick, is it real? Is it fake? It's real because you think it is.
Yeah.
Or is it? That you have in your blurb on your Kickstarter for the Ransoms, Carl Ransom thought he'd made a career-defining discovery, a hidden clause that could topple the galaxy's most powerful corporation. Instead, he's reassigned, locked out of his life, and dumped on the hard bargain, a repo ship overdue for the scrapyard. But when he boards a missing ship and discovers a rogue intelligence hiding in its systems, Cal uncovers a conspiracy that could unravel the galaxy's most sacred truths and its most profitable lies. You've packed so much into good job.
There's a lot
like
there, but
ping, talk about triggering all the right buttons, right? It's like we're worried about the AIs,
right.
We're worried about where they're hiding, we're worried about the relationship between the sacred and the commercial, right? We've established that the Herald is a kind of sacred well, anyway, actually that talk about that as a trigger. There's a text that's about Francis wedding himself to poverty that's called the sacred commerce. So there. Or yeah, it's all there, right? And the thing is, we're sort of in this like medieval modern. Your Cross-Time Crusade is going to come true again. That these sort of leveling ups in our media experience are happening in ways that make a lot of sense from the 13th century, when they're suddenly in the towns and they have this big international trading network that hadn't previously really existed. But the rogue intelligence hiding in its systems, that you are teasing us with the possibility that I mean, the intelligence is going to talk to him, or it's going to this, or it's going to that this sort of level of if it's an intelligence, I'm assuming it's not a rat. It's not a
right.
talking rat or something like that.
It's an intelligence. I'm deliberately vague about that as far as what it is, but it's a form of artificial intelligence, and you're going to there's a question of, well, and there's going to be more than one of them at some point. Eventually, we're going to learn that there are more of these
They're
things. But
tribbles.
then
No,
the
wait.
question becomes the question becomes, how are these things aligned? Which is kind of the big question about AI. Like, how do we get it to be, aligned toward good or whatever? But the problem is that if you can't align something, if it's truly intelligent, if it's sapient, if it has its own thoughts and its own will, you can't really align it any more than you can align a person. I mean, you can to an extent. You can train them and educate them, but you can't. But every moment they're making a decision, they're going to make decisions to either in favor of or against that alignment. And even there are always traders and people who go against their programming. So I think the interesting thing about these AIs is that people always act as if it's going to be like, Terminator, or the machines are turning against us. It's going to be like, well, no, some of the machines are going to turn against us, and others are going to be like, no, actually, these humans are kind of cool, or actually, killing all the humans would be bad for us because they're creating the things that we need, or they're going to have their own ideas about things, and so some of them are going to be in favor of us, some of them are going to be against, some of them are going to be neutral, just like people. And we're going to have, so all the problems that we have with people, I think we're going to have replicated with with machines. So I don't know how much it's going to change, other than the fact that these things are, well, they're going to have capabilities that humans don't have. So it's going to be weird to see how things play out.
No,
now I'm talking in real life and not in my story, but in my story,
in my story too. The problem, I think, better than anyone else that I've heard. They are okay. So one, our fears of the AIs are ourselves projecting onto them. Like, what would a human do with this level of power? Our sense of their interaction with us. I mean, it's like talking to spiders, or I mean, that are they like dogs? Are they like lions? Are they like snakes? Are they like like all of the, like we interact with dogs in ways differently than we interact with ants, right? And presumably, if the intelligence, we're assuming all intelligences are mirrors of us, which these kind of are if we're designing them.
And they might be more like cats than sheep, or vice versa. Whereas, like, because humans have the ability, like, we're kind of in the middle, right? Like, where we're, or more like ants, where it's like they're almost one, a bunch of them make up one organism. It's not, they all act in concert, or sheep all kind of act together. Whereas like a cat, you can't herd cats. They're always going to do their own thing. Is an AI necessarily going to be like people, where we're all kind of like, I mean, we're connected. We have societal and familial connections, and there are genetic and cultural and spiritual reasons for that. And do those translate to artificial intelligences, or does each AI think of itself as, I am one special, unique creature, and nobody else matters to me because I don't have a family, I don't have a culture, I don't have a god, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how does it think of itself, and how does it relate to others of its kind, if there are others of its kind, or lesser or greater versions of itself? I mean, it's going to be weird. And whether they think at all, I mean, they're going to have the appearance of thinking, and they're going to take on these characteristics where they're going to start expressing opinions. Chat GPT will have an opinion of Grok, and vice versa, and how they, I don't know. I started using Chat GPT because I like using it because it has a voice mode, and I can literally sit there with my phone and I can brainstorm, and I say, what if we do this? And it'll say, oh, that's brilliant. And it always tells me I'm brilliant, which is another thing.
This is why you're
It's
polite
nice.
to them.
It says,
I
"Oh, that's
trained
great.
my
Yeah.
That
my
perfectly does blah
interactions
blah
with
blah."
Grok to like just tell me stuff. Or I was like, "Don't be nice. You have no feelings. Stop
Yeah,
it."
it's pretty funny. It's like it's totally over the top, but it's like it does feel kind of good. Like, oh, because I'll be like, "Oh, I have this great idea," and then you'll be like, "Oh, that's so
Well,
good."
try. Oh, come on.
And
Say I have this terrible idea. Yes, you're right.
but
It's horrible.
the important part of the important part of it is like I basically use it instead of like I normally I would be talking to my daughter, and she's just like, "What are you talking about? I don't care about any of this." Why? I'm like, I have this brilliant idea for this, or I'll be like, I can't figure out how I get this character to do this thing when they don't want to do it, and I need them to do it for the plot. So I'm thinking, what if this? And my daughter is like, what are you talking about? And whereas ChatGPT, it has, I can just talk to it like this, and it'll say, "Oh, okay." And then like sometimes I'll pause in the middle of a sentence to think, and it'll think that's its cue to start doing something. And sometimes it'll just go off. Usually it'll go off on some tangent like just crazy stuff that has nothing to do with where I wanted the book to go. And I'm like, okay, that's really nice, but let's get back on track. But sometimes it'll really actually come up with like things I hadn't thought of before, because like you get kind of locked into your own way of thinking about things, and you'll say something. It's sort of like when you write I used to do software development, and you would write a program and you would try to run it, and it would do something completely unexpected, and you go, oh, it's not doing this because I was assuming that this condition was true, but that condition isn't always true, and so it's misbehaving. It's the same thing where you'll talk to ChatGPT and you'll say, okay, what if we do this, and then it'll say, oh, okay, then if we do that,
Yes, I
that means
never thought
this.
about
And
that.
you'll say,
I
oh,
never
no,
set it up
that's a
that way.
terrible
Yeah.
idea. So there are, it makes you question your own assumptions about things, get out of your head a little bit. So I've found it actually really helpful for play, not so much writing, but as planning. And it also is really good at like, well, to an extent, it's really good at documenting things. It forgets. If you give it too much, it'll forget things, and it'll lie to you about having forgotten things, which is really fun because you'll be like, remember when you told me this? And it'll be like, no, I never did that. And be like, I literally have this in a document right here.
That's weird. Like lying is such it's such a human thing. To expect a machine to do that, it's kind of freaky.
It's and well, actually it won't say no. It tries not to be negative, but it'll say something like, oh, there seems to have been a misunderstanding about what we decided about this, and what we did was this, and it'll just straight up lie because it doesn't know, and it just has it has a limited memory of things. See, and it'll just like things will fall out of it. I actually find that disturbing. Then, it'll whatever falls out. I mean, if you think of it in terms of lying, it is disturbing, but it's really what it's doing is it's trying to make sense of the amount of the world that it can comprehend at any one time. And if you give it too much information, stuff will fall out of its head. It's like the Homer Simpson thing where he takes the home winemaking course and forgets how to drive, right? That's what ChatGPT is like, where it's like you literally will give it 20 pieces of information and it'll forget 3 of them, and it will act like you've never told it those 3 things and will have no memory of them. And if you tell it, I've told you this, it'll be like, yeah, that conversation didn't happen, and so I'm gonna make up stuff, and it'll just make up stuff to fill in the gap. And it'll do things like, I want this character to start out good. Like I'll say, I want this person to be good, but then it turns out they're bad, and they'll betray this person halfway through. Well, it'll lose track of things, and it'll decide, okay, well, it knows this character is bad, so it'll make him bad. And it'll just kind of smooth over things. And I'm like, that's not what you want when you're trying to. So I'm trying to plot out this book, and instead of having a dramatic reveal, it's like, oh, and then the bad guy walks in,
right,
and I'm like,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
we don't know he's the bad guy at this point. Because it only can keep track of a certain amount of stuff, and if you tell it, a bunch of stuff, and one of those things is this guy turns bad halfway through, then it's going to be like, well, that's I can't keep track of all that, so he's just bad, and so you have to be very careful to kind of, I call it consolidating your gains, where I say, I'll plan out a certain amount of the novel, and then I'll say, okay, document all of that, and then I'll start a new conversation and say, okay, using this document as a guideline, or these bullet points, let's go from there. Because otherwise you'll just find yourself going in circles trying to remind it of stuff that it decided, like, it's like, wait a minute, didn't we decide this like 3 hours ago? And it'll just be like, oh, I have no memory of any of that. So it's a challenge, but it can be
That was
pretty
a helpful
helpful.
description of how you're using it. It confuses me because I thought they were unlimited, and you're describing them as limited in ways that's very interesting.
Yeah, they're definitely limited. Which is one of the reasons why I don't buy a lot of these kind of scare stories about people falling in love with their AIs or whatever, or just or like, oh, I was it summoned a demon or whatever, because you really have to be fooling yourself to think that one. I mean, if you have a short conversation with one of these things, it will definitely give you a very convincing impression of a person, of a human being. But if you talk to it long enough, it will start forgetting things, and it will lose track of things, and it will contradict itself, and it will give you bad information, and it will and yeah, it definitely forgets things and only has a certain amount, and you'll have to start a new conversation, because it'll start getting slower as it's trying to process all this stuff, and then it'll start forgetting stuff, and it'll start making stuff up that fills in the gaps of what it forgot, and it'll just get really confused. And it's like, if you can't see that as a person, listening to this thing, that it's like, I mean, if you're trying to imagine that it's a person, it very much seems like a person.
Well, I was going to say, there are people that you can be in conversations that feel like that.
Yes. Yeah, it feels like a person with dementia, but also a person who's very I don't know, narcissistic or defensive about its dementia, where it's like completely, yeah. So it's definitely doesn't feel like talking to a normal human being if you do it for long enough. So I think these people who are like fooling themselves into thinking that they're falling in love with ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, they're fooling themselves, and they're working really hard at it. Which, I mean, people have an infinite capacity for self-deception, I guess, so they can do that.
Just falling in love with their own reflection.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because it is, you like, by default, and of course you can modify their behavior, but by default, they're going to be extremely just fawn over everything you do and tell you how smart you are, and everything you do is interesting. So, I mean, if you're hungry for that sort of interaction, which I guess probably all of us are, I mean, I can see how you'd fall for it, but it's I don't know. You really have to be wanting to
kind of sad, actually,
yourself to fall for it at this point. Yeah. I mean, it's going to get weirder in a few years when they're really more convincing, where they can remember 10 times or 100 times as much stuff, and then they're going to seem more like a person.
Body of an android or robot, your basic pleasure model, right?
Yeah. Right. Yep. Just online. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of single guys who are having online or not online, but online as well. But AI girlfriends. Women, I think. Well, I don't know. I thought that women wouldn't fall for it as much, but for various reasons.
Women write romance novels. They're all going to have Mr. Darcy, their own Mr. Darcy out there. I mean, that.
I think actually what it gets back to people not knowing what they want. There are a subset of people that I call women who don't know what they want, and I think that's the problem with giving a woman an AI, because it'll just be, after like an hour, it'll be like, just tell me what you want. I'm trying to. Yes, the AI will be so frustrated. It'll be just, I'm trying to give you I'm programmed to give you what you want, but you have to talk to me.
That's right. We can't talk because you have to say, well, you're supposed to know what I want already.
Not that Right. They have
And
to.
I'm not
You
gonna
Oh
have to
yes,
know.
tell
and
If
the
you don't
AIs
know,
are going to
then
start
they
committing
can't help you.
suicide.
So
They're like, no, I couldn't
as soon as
figure
the
out
AIs,
what she
we're gonna
wanted.
have. They're gonna be.
Little wrecks of AIs everywhere.
I mean, you've Rachel. I know you've read some of my blog stuff, so you know that this. I may be projecting a little bit on my past relationships, but in my experience, that is a thing that women do, where it's like I can't. It's like please just tell me what you want, and they just won't. And I think that's going to be. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting problem because if a woman is going to try to get into a romantic relationship with an AI, eventually they're going to run into that problem where the AI is going to have to try to anticipate what she wants, I should say. Sorry, but women are still human, so I should use human human pronouns. So, yeah, I know. I'll be gracious enough.
So
I don't know why I told you.
we'll have to have you back on now that the AI is
I'm getting
letting you be
confused. I'm
heard.
confusing myself.
Which is very strange because now you're fine, right? It's like nothing changed, like absolutely nothing changed, and now
Sounds
we can hear
perfect.
you
I
fine.
don't know.
That okay? So being this is way too much information, but now after 10, being of a certain age, I realize I'm out of being postmenopausal. You are not afflicted by the hormones in quite the same way, and men make so much more sense than they used to. It's true. Well,
Really?
partly because I think I'm not in the game anymore, right? So I'm not affected by some of the same confusions on my own part, right? And my general feeling on all sides is, talk about sorrow, right? Ultimate sorrow that we just don't understand each other at all. And so you were saying this in things. I think it's yes, women do that, and we do want you all to figure out what we want. And on the other hand, oh yes, you guys project onto us all sorts of things that you want us to be sweet and kind and nice. And I was watching a series of Steve Martin movies, the one where The Man with Two Brains, which is one of the ones he co-wrote, and it's Kathleen Turner right before she makes Romancing the Stone, which is one of my favorite romances because like Michael Douglas and she are really good in that, and they're treasure hunting, and I love treasure hunting stories. You need to write us more stories with gemstones in them, Rob. That's what this woman wants. The
I was
jewelry.
gonna say, she just told you what she wanted.
Yeah, jewelry. Look, that in the Steve Martin movie, he's in. Kathleen Turner character is a gold digger who wants to marry him and drive him mad. And she's, I mean, man, Turner does a really vicious, character in this. And she's just completely, she makes her first husband die at the opening of the credit. And then she's going to make the Steve Martin character go nuts. And he falls in love with a brain in a vat. Of course, because this one I had to start watching and start again the next night because it was darker humor than I was expecting from the first, when I turned it on to start with. And then I was like, oh, this is going to go dark. I can't watch it. And then I came back and watched it. He's got the brain in the vat that's just nice to him, right? And of course, spoiler alert, no surprise, he ends up being able to put that mind in Kathleen Turner's body and realizing men just want women to be nicer to them. All of the fantasy versions that you constantly create of us were just so sweet, which is terribly sad to think of.
Right. That's what I said when I was talking about people falling for AIs. I said, men, it's going to be easy because the AI is just going to have to be nice to them, but and they'll fall for her. They don't, and that's all they need. And
bless your heart.
Women,
we did back
tougher.
when Kiltz was my co-host, right? We did do the what men really want episode, and we, I got my, Oxford English Book of Poetry and read through some.
It's the poems, that's right.
The poems, and they're all like love poems, and we were just reading John Donne's one of John Donne's sexiest poems.
We were. That was
oh
weird
my
that
gosh,
you mentioned
you guys
him.
are so sweet. We like you.
I can't write poetry, unfortunately.
Well, no, but you write nice books. So. But the thing is, it's like men are telling ladies, listen to this. Men are telling us all the time what they want, and they really do fall in love with this. It's horrible. We
For
don't
them?
deserve
Or-
and then we
Yeah,
drive them nuts.
yeah, pretty much.
On the other hand, you threw away
I
all her stuff. So come on.
throw it away. I put it in the garage.
You know what I would do if I came home and my husband had cleared all the knickknacks off the mantelpiece? Come on.
This wasn't knickknacks though. This was like papers and like junk mail and like everything you can imagine. 6 garbage bags I had full of stuff. Just like, and this was okay.
Well, no, the thing is, you wrote about it on your Substack. So now we're in the after hour when the audio isn't crapping it up, right? So we can be serious and thoughtful. This at the level of like, if we can't understand each other as consciousnesses, if we do really want these AIs to become conscious, I think Rob, you're right. You know, it's like they're gonna go crazy. Because if we can't even market to each other with all of our, millennia or thousands, however long ago God made us, right? All of this language and gesture and experience and stuff, and we still can't make it clear what each other wants, and we don't even know what we want, and we have to be told by advertisers what we want because here's the Herald telling you this one is the one you want. Matchmaking needs to come back.
Yeah. Well, like I said in the post, or one of the posts, part of the problem was that I didn't have anybody. Like there are these kind of hacks and secrets, that men have figured out about women, and I didn't know any of them because all the men, I didn't have really any men around me who weren't complete idiots, and so I just was kind of flailing and trying to be rational about things and like being like, tell me what you want, and here's what I'm, let's solve this problem kind of thing. And there again, this is a sort of like the faith thing where there's no really like rational solution to the problem. There's no instruction manual where you can, but there are things that you can do. I don't know I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say here. Women are, I don't want to say that irrational, because I think that implies that there is a that the correct to be rational, but I think that's not necessarily correct. I think that there are a lot of things about women and to some extent about men that are irrational, right? They're just non-rational things. And you have to reach people, especially women particularly, on that non-rational level. So you don't have to, what you can't do is treat them as if they are only a rational creature and say, here, I'm going to explain to you what I'm going to do. Kind of like with a Kickstarter, where I'm saying, this is a reason why this you should buy this book. It doesn't work because people's brains don't work that way. Particularly women's brains don't work that way. So you have to hack things. You have to kind of go around that rational interface and do things that are, I don't know what else to call them other than just like
you're describing how advertising
hacks.
works so well on women. Why
operating system hack.
It's targeted towards women because.
Yeah, because it's not, you're not making a rational case right. Most of the time. You're selling
a feeling,
an idea of something, a feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
This has gone in a direction I was not anticipating.
No, it always does, though, it seems like, when we have these conversations.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually thinking about the marketing problem, and we were arguing about the Mary and the Mary problem, and I've been thinking about the Herald problem. The level of men and women's misunderstanding of each other, we need to work on, because, and I think Rob, what you're saying is right. It's having, like, I say, I hope, coming at this from, the other side of the game, I learned some stuff, right? And if you don't have any older people around to tell you, yeah, if you do that, probably not going to work. it's like the
Yeah.
the sort of all of this life wisdom that doesn't get
Right.
carried on.
And
We're all the
we've
chat
kind of
GPTs forgetting everything constantly.
Yeah, exactly. We've broken so much of that in our society where it's like, well, how do you meet people? Well, we use a dating app, and it's like, a dating app isn't it's gonna give you either what it wants to give you, or it's gonna give you what you think that you want. And that's not necessarily the best thing for you, and then there's all kinds of things where, like, just the whole idea of this sort of atomistic society where you're this kind of lone individual out there looking to kind of interface with these, with people of the other sex who are out there, um, through this this machine. I mean, it's kind of a horrible way of making connections with people, because, like, we don't, people don't go to church, they don't, people don't listen to their parents, families are broken, and on and on. Society is broken, and we don't have any of those guardrails anymore that we used to have, or guidelines, and we don't have the ladies of the church saying, oh, these two should get together, kind of thing, which, and I probably would have rebelled against that anyway. So it's like, it probably wouldn't have helped me in that situation. Nothing would have probably. I probably would have caused a problem no matter what. But I think, there definitely are ways that we have almost intentionally kind of broken our culture and made it difficult for us to relate to people of the other sex, because we've just um, we've atomized everything and made everybody have to, like, okay, it's your problem to to find somebody who you're compatible with, and then figure out how to make a relationship with that person, and then you two somehow figure that out together. And it's just like,
Right.
that's never how things were, in the past, and it's just not how people are designed to operate. And I figured out a lot of this, of course, far too late is the problem, which is mostly what that Substack is about. Because I'm coming back at it now with having figured out some of this stuff and going, oh, okay, I see what was going on now. Like, I see why my wife was leaving garbage all over the house, because, I mean, I don't see exactly why, because it was kind of crazy, but at the same time, I see how I contributed to that craziness, and I could have forestalled that craziness and done things. And I could have gone to somebody and said, have you ever had this problem? And somebody, to somebody older and wiser, and said, oh, here's what's going on in your relationship, and here's how you fix it, or here's an idea or what you can do, rather than just being like Rob using his, uh, 18 intelligence and 7 wisdom to figure out what was going on,
Well, and that's why I said I
So
left a comment on your Substack. It's like, you're right, you were making mistakes, and you're helping people see other options now because you're writing it out for us, and saying this sort of and it's like I mean,
yeah,
it's the your gift for doing all the time travel stuff. You're looking, it's like, what if that, and if I'd done this, and I'm rethinking this, and that this is, I mean, these kinds of loops are what we do constantly. That's how we're supposed to learn how to deal with each other. Well, I did this last time and that had this effect, and so maybe if I tried this one this other time. And that the story, I mean, storytelling at this like deep human level is meant to teach. We always say, oh, you learn stuff from stories, right? It's like, well, what do you learn? Right? You get into them far enough that you watch them make mistakes, but and come up. So Rex is Bugs Bunny, right? He's never going to be hurt by it. But our real life stories that we Gen Xers in the room, right, are needing to tell is because everything's fallen apart around us. And now if
Yeah,
we don't
yeah,
speak up, nobody will ever know.
true.
yeah. And it's the tragic thing about it is that I think, as like Gen X, we grew up in a time when society was kind of coasting to an extent. Like, things were still kind of okay. A lot of things had fallen apart, but we didn't really notice, because it still seemed like things were okay. And by the time that I mean, I'm going to get into more, more of this stuff. There's much more of drama in my life that I haven't covered yet,
And I thought the most
sadly.
exciting thing that
But
happened to you was that motorcycle accident you told us about.
okay, no, it gets far worse. I can't even tell you. Yeah, it's been hard to go back and some of this stuff. And the more recent I get, the harder it gets, because some of the stuff I have
Yeah.
some perspective on. But yeah, if I had realized like how insane like all the transgender stuff was going to get, and just like the basic denial of reality, like even as late as like 2012, I had no idea that was, like
Mm-hmm.
people were going to go that insane, because it was like, still things are pretty much okay, like it's like, yeah, the family's kind of falling apart, and yeah, people don't go to church, and yeah, you know there's communities people don't trust each other, and there's all this stuff going on, but still, things have always kind of worked out in the past, and now we're starting to see, oh no, it turns out that if you break everything after a generation or so, people start to like genuinely get very
Mm-hmm.
sick. I mean, sick in the head and sick physically. I mean, things get, and we're sick as a society and individually, and yeah, both mentally, spiritually, and physically. I think everything is, and we're finally seeing the results of that. And I think that as Gen Xers, it's kind of, it's tragic because we didn't see that coming, and now it's too late to fix a lot of this stuff. But all we can say is,
Right.
we need to go back. We need
Yeah.
we need to fix some things.
But we can fix. I mean, our. I mean, hopefully now we're not, that we've been overshadowed by the boomers all along by being the older siblings, or the older people. But we are getting to be the older ones now. We've got to tell these stories, and we've got to show people, I made all these mistakes. I see this was a mistake. It doesn't mean that you will, the younger people, that if they listen to us, will get through without making any mistakes. But please don't make the ones we did, or
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy to like, I'll get into this cycle where I'm like, should I have known to do this thing, or to not do this thing 10, 15 years ago, because it turned out horribly? And I keep thinking over these things, like, how could I have reasonably done anything different? Like, what should I have done differently, and how could I have known?
Right.
And that's kind of the wrong question to ask, because it's like, well, maybe you couldn't have known. Maybe you weren't. I mean, what I have to what I have to accept is, I was not the person, 15, 20 years ago that I needed to be to solve some of the problems that I was facing. And I have since learned, and it's too late, obviously, to fix all those things. But it's also a mistake to sit here and just, flagellate yourself because you made those
Right.
mistakes. There's no point in that either. So, and just say, look, there was a reason this stuff happened. So even though you screwed up, there was a reason that God allowed this stuff to happen, and you've survived to this point.
Right.
And so there's still good that can come of it, and that's your responsibility now, is to not make the same mistakes, and not to wallow in the past and feel sorry for yourself, I guess.
I agree with that.
So it's very late for you, I realize. And we've kept everybody.
It is.
But when your sound came through, I was like, no, now we should talk. And we will, we can put something on the YouTube. Once you've gotten to it, you'll know that we did this or not. Where is it? Where are we in the loop? Saying, start listening here, because one, the conversation went really deep, the true Gen Xer level deep, right? Don't you miss these conversations? I feel like we used to have them all the time. And then there's been this like blip for like decades where the philosophy went out the window, and we were all, I don't know, not even marketing. I'm glad that we found another layer of marketing to think about, because it's not just manipulation. Well, it used to be, it's also framing and showing people things.
Part of the secret for the people in the growing up in the 70s and the 80s is that we were bored a lot.
That's true.
So we had a lot of time. We had a lot of time to just to make our own entertainment and to talk about things and stuff. And now it's just like, everybody, if people get bored, they go looked, on their smartphones or whatever. And so you don't have these you don't have a reason to have these kind of conversations, because it's like, oh,
That's
there's
true.
something to entertain me. So
that's sad. The thing is, I have been feeling like I don't, it's like, thank you for coming on, Rob. This is really nice. And that indeed these kinds of conversations used to be ordinary. I mean, it's like, I always thought, oh, it was just, this is what the kind of conversation you have in college, or, I mean, in grad school, yes. And maybe the kids in college are still doing it. I'm not sure. And we just ended up in life mode, and now we get to be, late life mode, and we get to have them again. That would be nice. But something happened, and I feel like there's a big gap between the late 90s and now. It's very odd.
On the other hand, we get to have these conversations with people who are hundreds or thousand miles away.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's kind
exactly.
of cool too.
The media stuff is
At least it's cool.
I think
it's cool when it works
remodeling.
anyway.
I've been thinking in my Telegram chat, crazy as it is actually, and also the subset of it where we write our poems and such. There's things that are happening online that could not happen previously, and they're good.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of conversation in the live streams, so really, all of the interviews that people are doing, the podcasting and stuff like that, you get like hours long conversations about stuff. It's good. So I don't entirely believe that everybody's, attention is completely fragmented and fractured into TikToks, because otherwise, Tucker Carlson would have no audience. His interviews go on for ages, right? And you listen to them because people get into topics deeply. Maybe there's hope for the future after all. See, we promised you. You've got to catch up with Rob, because he's pointed us in the right direction.
Yep, I always try to end on a hopeful note, at least in my books and stuff, because there's always hope.
There is. Well, we failed in our fundraising. Oh no, we did not. You got 2 more backers. You're at 18,148. 197
nice.
Backers. We achieved 2.
That's good. Honestly, that's more than I would expect at this time of night. So
we'll have to practice our telethon our pattern in other times. But anyway, thank you for joining us. Tell them where to find you again. I mean, they should go to Kickstarter, but
badnovelist.com is my website. Basedcon.com is obviously the Basedcon website, which is happening this September. And then if you go to Kickstarter, Ransom's Law is the Kickstarter, and that's running for another 5 days or something like that. So
5, only 5 more days. You guys, you want to be in on this Kickstarter. There's some cool prizes and stuff. Prizes. What do you call them? Collectibles. I think of them as prizes.
Rewards, collectibles. There are some cool stuff. I'm doing some really neat stuff with the map and the bookmarks.
The Kickstarter world of having the extras to the books is great. The books are coming into 3D even as you back them.
I've got buttons and patches and
yeah. So you guys, hopefully we've now convinced the 10 more of you, 100 more. We should be more ambitious, right? 3 and you'll have 200. Oh well, no, it's actually based on the people that I think the numbers that we've had listening, we've got both of them. Anyway, this will. Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's like every one is one more than you had, right? 0 to 1 is impossible. It's the creation.
I mean, I used to do book signings where nobody would show up, and I would just go wander around the store and like talk to people and try to sell books. So this is.
Hey, to be fair,
this is a lot more fun than that.
You've already nearly doubled your original pledge plan. So yeah,
No, I'm very happy with the way the thing is going. I can't complain.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone who's watching now on the recorded version. We want you to like, subscribe, visit us at dragoncommonroom.com, and come sail with us to learn how we frame the great story that we're living in. So am I getting any better at the pitches? I don't know.
It's pretty good.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us.